drumbeat in Washington, even among many Republicans, calling for answers, calling for accountability in this hacking scandal. I'm joined now by Republican strategist Sarah Isgur Flores, former Deputy Communications Director for the RNC, and conservative radio talk show host Hugh Hewitt, also an MSNBC political analyst. Hugh, appreciate you carving out some time. I know you've got a radio show there to do. Thanks to both of you. Hugh, John Bolton, a guy whose name was tossed about for Secretary of State, now being bandied about as a candidate for Deputy Secretary of State. He was on Fox Business News this morning, and here's what he says he's been hearing on the Hill. Take a listen.
And let me say, I've spoken to a number of Republican senators, plural, in the past 2 days, have actually looked at the intelligence, and they do believe that it was the Russian government that did it. Now, it's not clear, and in fact, you can probably say with some confidence that it didn't affect the election.
Hugh, it's starting to seem as if the president-elect is about the only person in Washington who thinks that Russia may not have been involved in this.
Well, I don't read Donald Trump that way, Craig. The president-elect, I think, is voicing a great deal of chagrin at the ongoing media narrative that omits some key facts. I believe it was Russia, but I also know that Ben Rhodes, the Deputy National Security Advisor, has a history of misleading the media with off-the-record briefings as he did on the Iran deal. I know that Devin Nunes, who's the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, asked the intelligence agencies to come and brief his committee this week, and they refused to do it. And so, I know the FBI did not reach the same conclusion that the CIA did. So while I personally believe it was the Russians,
you and 17 other federal agencies as well, Hugh, just for the record.
And I believe that to be the case, but I understand the peak of the president-elect at the refusal to focus on, like yesterday he named Kellogg as his chief of staff on national security. He named Monica Crowley to be the spokesperson. When we get Mike Pompeo at the CIA and a new director of national intelligence, perhaps Sarah's old boss, Carly Fiorina, or John Bolton, or whoever, then I think there'll be a lot more willingness on the part of the president-elect to review this, but not on rumor and innuendo that is not backed up by hearings and, in fact, is rejected when hearings are rejected.
Sarah, backlash today from the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Republican Ron Johnson. Hugh was just talking about another example of this. Senator Johnson saying that he asked the CIA for a briefing on this Russian hacking, but his request was denied. In a statement, he writes in part, quote, "It is disappointing that the CIA would provide information on this issue to the Washington Post and NBC, but will not provide information to elected members of Congress." What's happening here?
Well, I think we have leaks at the CIA that are trying to score points in the press, and we have Democrats desperately trying to hold on to this idea that Donald Trump wasn't actually elected and won't be the president-elect. It's why we see celebrities trying to sway the Electoral College. Politically, for Democrats, this is a huge mistake. They're looking quite foolish, especially when you then have stories coming out about Hillary's team in Michigan having no ground game, no persuasion effort whatsoever to reach voters, while Brooklyn is sitting in a bubble. They want to blame this on the Russians because they can't blame it on their message, and they don't want to blame it on their candidate. And so they're trying to cling on to this. That's why I don't think the intelligence communities are ready yet to brief elected members, but you see these one-off leaks, innuendo, and as Hugh said, I totally agree, these misleading background briefings that we think are going on by Democrats with an agenda.
Well, let's switch gears here. Let's talk about the president-elect's pick for U.S. ambassador to Israel. David Friedman, a hardliner who he's also made some pretty controversial statements, Hugh, when he was advising Trump on the campaign trail. Here he is in an interview accusing Clinton aide Huma Abedin of having ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. Here he is.
I think the evidence is such that she does have ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. She grew up in Saudi Arabia. Her parents are, known intellectuals with regard to Sharia law, and they have connections to the Muslim Brotherhood. I don't think that's terribly controversial.
Hugh, he sounds like a wacky conspiracy theorist. As you know, the claim found to be baseless, according to the Washington Post, according to all of the other major fact checkers. Is this guy fit to be U.S. ambassador to Israel?
Yes, he is. I don't know him, but I do know that he has the president's ear, and if You want someone who has a close relationship with the president-elect to be named your ambassador. I don't think he's a wacky conspiracy theorist, although that is not my favorite line of attack on Huma Abedin. There's much more. But I do think when he speaks to Netanyahu...
How is that not a wacky conspiracy theory?
If you read Andrew McCarthy's rather detailed essay on Huma's parents, there are these allegations, which I do not put much credit in, but which have been around for many years, that her parents were involved in the Muslim Brotherhood. And I don't believe that would disqualify Huma Abedin from serving as she has served. But my key point is that you want an ambassador that when they say to Netanyahu or whoever is the prime minister, this is what the president says and what he means, will be believed. That's why, for example, when the President Obama this morning threatened sanctions or an action against the Russia, he's not believed, because when he threatened enormous consequences for crossing the red line, they never happened. You have to have reliable communicators of the actual point of view of the president as your ambassador. I think Mr. Friedman's one of those.
Sir, before we let you guys get out of here, Monday, of course, you just alluded to this, big day in this country, the Electoral College. It usually goes unnoticed, but all eyes will be on the 51 locations where the Electoral College will be casting their ballots. Your prediction, smooth, unremarkable?
Smooth and unremarkable. I think the Electoral College will do their job, and you'll have a small band of Hillary electoral voters who try to make this more than it is, and it falls on its face.
All right, Sir Isgur Flores, thank you. Hugh Hewitt, a big thanks to both of you. I won't see you before the holidays, so Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays.